You're tuning into A Wake Up Call, which is your weekly dose of purpose packed with science-backed tools to beat burnout and boost happiness.
Hosted by us, Tess Brower and 7-time world champion Layne Beachley.
We're the founders of Awake Academy. This podcast mixes raw life lessons, expert wisdom, and practical tips
to help you stop sleepwalking through life and start living it on your terms.
You ready to wake up and thrive?
Let's go.
Season 3 is proudly brought to you by AIA, a leading life, health and well-being insurer supporting healthier, longer, better lives. Protect what matters most and AIA will help you to do it for life.
Welcome back, Dream Team. Today's guest has been doing something we all try and avoid, the hard path. Sam Gash was working as a corporate lawyer when she decided to test the limits of what she was capable of. That decision led her to become the first woman and the youngest person at the time to complete the legendary 4 Deserts Grand Slam.
Has someone younger done that? Well, not at the time.
Not at the
Not
time.
at the time. Okay.
Running 1,000 kilometres across some of the world's harshest environments, including India almost 10 years ago. But somewhere along the way, running stopped being about running. It became about purpose. Since then, Sam has crossed India on foot to support education initiatives, traversed Nepal's Great Himalaya Trail, inspired audiences around the world and shown that resilience isn't about being fearless. It's about continuing to move forward when every path wants you to stop. No wonder you're an AIA ambassador. You may always...
She does it for life.
She does it for life. You may also know her as one of the sharpest strategic minds to play Australian Survivor, and I want to know a little bit more about that today, Sam. So today we're not actually talking about running, believe it or not. We're talking about courage, purpose, resilience, and what it really takes to keep moving when life gets real hard. Sam Gash, welcome to A Wake Up Call.
Oh, I feel like I just kind of reminded myself of the things that I've done, which I think sometimes it's nice to hear the reminder of like the breadth of experiences that you can kind of bring to your everyday. Like sometimes we quarantine them as like, you know, they're done and then move on to the next thing. But yeah. Nice
what does it mean to you when you hear that read back to you?
I'll tell you what it means to me. Recently I've really thought about just because you've done hard things in a certain domain doesn't mean that it transfers to your capabilities to do hard things in other frontiers. So I'll often have people go, but you're so resilient. And I'm like, not in everything.
Yeah.
But the thing is, so it's not the act that creates resilience or capacity. I think it's actually the reflection, like the reflection of that moment and kind of like diagnosing it almost, going, you know, where were my defaults showing up in those moments? Like what invisible rules did I kind of quash my capacity to think more broader and the biggest thing, like we talk about resilience a lot. Resilience for me is just being able to be adaptive, quicker and with greater ease.
In the environment that you find yourself in.
Yeah.
So would that be your wake-up call? Like looking back now, like on one of the greatest sporting achievements, I would think, because you're doing it, it's just you and the mind and a backpack, right? Going through crazy environments, looking back and reflecting, what was your wake-up call?
Well, I can do hard things if I am utterly committed. And in the kind of like presence of commitment, it doesn't really matter what my past experiences would kind of tell me that my capacity could be. So, you know, I haven't always had like a blueprint of past experience, like of being a physical athlete to then go and take on a marathon or an ultra marathon. So I don't think you need to have had exposure to certain types of things to do it. But I do think you need to, you know, have probably an unwavering self-belief that you're in it. Like skin in the game, you're going to find a way forward and you can bring to the forefront, you know, different moments of your life where you have shown to yourself that like, I mean, you can just keep moving forward. And I think that's all it is. Difficult moments are just about finding that capability of turning down the duress, turning down the overwhelm, turning down the imposter syndrome, the fear, which like all of us have. Like no one is immune to that stuff. Sometimes it's really obvious in someone's faces. Other times it's like deeply held, but everyone's working through it in some kind of way. So I haven't until recently really had to challenge that notion of self-belief. It's been something more in my last couple of years that sometimes I've been feeling less of a capacity to what I used to have. And so that's challenged my self-belief. Like, can I make this happen if my capacity feels less than what it was before?
So are you comparing yourself to previous versions of yourself to find the confidence and the belief to push through? Because you've done a lot of hard things, and obviously when you overcome challenges and push yourself, if you take the time to reflect on it, you're like, wow, I'm pretty good. I'm pretty cool. I'm pretty strong. I'm stronger than I gave myself credit for. So perhaps the first question is actually, where does that unwavering self-belief come from? How can we all develop it? And then in those moments where you feel like it's been compromised or sabotaged, how do you come back to that? Like, how do you find your way back?
Oh, there's so many things in that, because I'm challenging some of my capacity, some of my strength or resilience from the past, and go, like, where did that come from? Was it always best served? Did I sometimes think that I needed to suffer at all costs in every domain of life?
Yes.
To be someone or
Of course
something.
you did. Of course you did.
Yeah.
I saw you suffer.
Yeah. And so I think I'm proud of it, but I also now want to challenge it, because I don't think life is always about suffering at all costs. And I just think, we have a certain amount of footsteps, like, use them wisely.
Yeah.
But that's why they say youth is wasted on the young, right?
Oh, I know, because we don't have the wisdom, but also the naivety is perfect. I think, in the naivety helps us tackle things that if you knew too much, you would never do it.
Yeah.
So you don't want to kind of quash that youthful naivety at times. Sometimes you kind of go, oh, I think sometimes people look at it going like, you can't possibly do it. And it's like, yeah, actually they probably can, because they don't know like what's ahead of them, and they are utterly present to the moment. And that kind of is, I think, a really powerful tool, our capacity to be present and to not kind of hold on to past blueprints or to be over fixated on like the path ahead means that we just kind of deal with the granular, the moment to moment to moment. So that's where you can surpass yourself.
Yeah, of course.
But in terms of where did my self-belief or desire come from at the beginning, I think my parents played a big role in it. And, they are not sporty, but they're dogged. Like in everything they've done, like they just,
Battlers?
Aussie battlers.
Aussie battlers.
Hard workers.
Hard workers.
Grit.
My dad came from, his parents were, from Czechoslovakia. They came over during the war. My grandfather was the commander of the armoured fleet, and, his whole battalion passed away around him in the armoured tanks. And, even their journey to Australia, two brothers married two sisters, not from the same family. That would be interesting.
It was the Depression.
It was, you've got to do what you got to do.
It was survival.
Looking for connections.
So I see that my family are survivors in different ways. Like my dad he had polio as a child.
Wow.
He was on a plank for like a period of time dealing with polio as well. And so and he's kind of built himself up from the ground. And my mum is just like a country gal from, Muswellbrook. And I think that kind of like wiring in DNA, and even though I place it in a very different domain, although like my mum's a massive gardener and I used to always be like, I'll go for a run. She's like, you should just be like working the garden. And now that I've turned 40 plus, I'm in the garden all the time. It's like you think these things you will never do. But it's funny how you return to it. You return back to that like lineage.
You turn back to smell the roses.
Oh.
So it sounds like you were geared for survival and struggle. Like it does run in our genes. And I'm so interested. You said something before about the labels or the prescriptions that you had to let go of when you were doing these runs. So for someone who doesn't know, can you give just a very quick overview of what that run entailed? And then in that, I would love you to tell me at what stage you dropped a label or you became of one that you were constrained by and you had to let it go to get to the next point.
I have so many labels that are still existing. So I've dropped them at times to do certain things, but I don't think they eliminate.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned. You can be someone that is scared of heights, that is a introvert and probably prefers to be in small dynamics and still be someone who can be magnetic and captivating in a large audience. Like, we can do things that don't necessarily sync with like the introversion, and it doesn't mean that we're being incongruent. It's just like we know how to turn the volume up and down
when it suits us. Hey,
well, yeah, when it serves us.
Yeah,
like when it's in like intentional, when the purpose or the objective for it is greater than like the inner voice that can like hold us back. So that's what I've learned. You know, might not be able to tell, but I'm short. So my big like inner critic was my size. Really affected my physical capability. I didn't really kind of think too much about like the mental side of endurance sports or even any sports. I really just held on to what was obvious. Like, you're small, you're uncoordinated.
Were you bullied about that at school?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely.
Were you reminded?
Pardon?
Were you reminded a lot as well?
I mean, I still am today.
Yeah.
But now, you know, I find it, I could turn into a joke, and it doesn't at all. It's like Teflon. Like, that stuff doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember I was like put into a trash can when I was like in maybe like later primary school because I fitted in a trash can. So obviously when I went to high school, I just decided to kind of like beat people to the joke, and I was like, I can get into the locker, you know, and I would put myself in the locker. And then I locked the key so I didn't go to class. No, you know, you kind of, you flip the script sometimes in order to kind of like take control of the narrative. So so that's something that I guess I learned from like it not working for me in the past.
Yeah, what a pivotal moment. No wonder you became a lawyer. You became the loudest person, well, the fighter, the one, you know.
Well, using your words.
Yeah.
What do you have at your disposal? Words can count. I always say to Harry, like, words matter. I think I say manners matter and words count.
And you're not small.
And I'm not small, yeah. But no, I am small, and so what?
Yeah.
And so if.
Yeah. So the overview of the race, just very quickly, just so the listener can get a grasp on this.
So, I mean,
take us back to the race.
Ultra marathons, you know, what's so kind of out of your, comfort zone is that they're always different, because they're all typically in extreme or isolated landscapes and environments. My kind of first big exposure was the 4 Deserts Grand Slam, not to be confused with the 4 Desserts Grand Slam.
I would like that version.
I know.
Give me the extra S every time.
I know sometimes when I do a keynote and someone introduces it, they accidentally say desserts, and I'm like, oh, don't you all wish it was that?
Yes.
What would be those 4 desserts?
What would be your favourite desserts that are very different?
And it'd be a Grand Slam.
Got to have a sticky date.
Lamington?
What?
Lamington?
A Lamington?
Yeah.
No. Oh, you reckon? Well, it's our
different, diverse.
Yeah, okay. So we've got a Lamington.
You really are an Aussie battler.
That would be a walnut chocolate brownie.
Oh.
Walnut.
Yeah. And then
we
the
have
last
to
one,
unanimously
I think
agree.
Sundae or like
a cheesecake.
Oh, I'm not a cheesecake
I'm
person.
not a cheesecake fan anymore, but I used to.
Well, it doesn't mean, you don't always like all the deserts. You know, they confronted you with things that really challenged you, and they were never the same. And I think that's hard. You think you kind of get the format.
Yeah.
But just because the distance is the same, which was each race was 250 kilometres over a certain number of days.
250 kilometres over on average, how many days?
It was 5 or 6. Antarctica, a bit of an outlier because you're really, you have to kind of, based on the environment. Like, it's like as long as the weather is good, you could stay out there and do laps. And so one time I was out there for 45 minutes before the weather flipped and we had to get back on the Zodiacs. Another time I was out for 11 hours. So the biggest challenge of that race was you have to sustain yourself for whatever it may be, which is just, it's so hard to kind of go, how do I pace myself? Like, should I pace myself for it being a short period of time to get as much kilometres done as possible, or do I have to think for the long haul? In fact, that was my first exposure to like kind of like track running in a sense. Even though it was Antarctica, it was like loops because they can't have you too far, away from the Zodiacs to get to the boat.
I must admit, I've never thought of Antarctica as a desert.
It's about the level of precipitation.
I know.
Yeah. And it's that would be our ice cream dessert. To finish us off.
So that was the really unique one. But the other ones were kind of, a point A to point B. So you were never returning to the same place.
Mentally, was that easier?
They both have their own sets of things. It's like kind of, it's getting locked into whatever is the format and kind of embracing
surrender
what you know and kind of like letting go of what you can't control.
Which is everything. Other than your thoughts and your emotions and
And
your
moving
responses?
forward.
You can control your response to difficult situations.
Right.
So that's like you can only control that, as well as how frequently you eat.
Yeah, right.
Unless you've run out of food.
Yeah.
Because you've got to carry, in these particular formats of ultra runs, you actually had to carry all your supplies that you needed in this pack on your back for, the number of days of the race. So the only things that they gave you at checkpoints was water, because obviously you can't carry all of the water, and a big tent at the finish where you would, sleep with 10 strangers. Smelly boys typically.
Yeah.
And everything else, you would bring. And they would have mandatory equipment as well as, I think it was 1,500 or to 2,000 calories. I can't exactly remember. And then, which I always thought was bizarre because, some people were like 6'3" and weighed 50 kilos more than me, but we all had to have the same minimum calories.
Yeah.
And I'm like, fascinating. Not at all bespoke, but, for me, I knew what I had to take for mandatory tick-off, and then everything else, for me, for the most part, was considered luxury because I was like, I just can't carry those things. And that became almost like my obsessive, how can I just release my need for that degree of comfort? Like, how do I not need to have the blow-up mattress, and can I be comfortable sleeping on the cold desert floor at nighttime, knowing that might impact my, quality and recovery, which back home you would just never run the next day after having done the distance or being in the environments that you were. But this is what the format is. So you just accept your new baseline.
Yeah.
And that's the cool thing. Like when you get back, it's amazing how quickly you go, oh, it's so nice to have all these kind of things. But we can survive with less. We can thrive with less. But it's actually about managing our expectations of what the baseline is.
So you've got Antarctica?
It was Chile. I have to say them in a row to get them right.
Okay.
Chile, China, Egypt, and Antarctica. And that was the sequence. So it was going to the Atacama Desert in Chile, which was the driest desert on Earth, and which I think was the most spectacular, like the salt flats in Atacama. It was just, they were brutal to kind of traverse, and they were so hard, and you never knew what was the integrity of the terrain underneath. That was the most blisters I've ever experienced in my life, and my feet swelled so much. And maybe that was also because it was my first one. Your body has such an intense reaction when it is the first time you do something so hard. And it is amazing how quickly adaptation happens. So I didn't have the same kind of blisters after that. And, maybe it was the terrain was different, but I just think it's like your skin gets a little tougher.
Yeah.
Your toenails get used to the pounding, and so they don't become as black. You also know to cut them a bit more just before the race. Your body adapts, but you also accrue information that you build into your formula.
Yeah, and your mind's adapting to it as well.
Yeah, it's both of it. It's both the practical application to the learning experience, which only becomes integrated through reflection. Otherwise, it's kind of just disassociated state. Well, that was hard. And then it's all gone.
Yeah.
And so it's there's nothing consolidated in such extreme, sometimes the non-intentional hard situations that you would rather forget than absorb. Maybe we don't learn the lessons from those kind of moments because it's you didn't sign up for it. But it's all hard things in our life we have the ability to learn something from that and kind of take that to the next iteration of who we, the things that we want to do or who we want to be.
So we're in the business of helping people be better humans. We're in the human capacity and human performance building business. And it sounds like real intense commitment to being, the best athlete you can be in that situation. I want to come back to the concept of drive really quickly, because from my perspective as a professional athlete, my inner drive was based on, prize money to get me to the next event, a trophy to hold above my head, validation from others. So a lot of it was extrinsically driven. But for you, I'd love to understand, what is the drive to go and do something like this that is so extreme and so intense? There's no prize money at the end of it. There's no trophy to be held on a podium. You're not being sprayed down with champagne. What is the drive?
It's a great question because, as time passes, you sometimes impose a different drive than maybe what it started as. So I always try and kind of like go back to like that version of me. And I can still feel like that person who was like knocking on the vice chancellor's like office to try and convince them that I was an athlete representing Australia in a sport that didn't really exist. So I could get time off and to be sponsored so I could fund some of these. And then he just decided to avoid me. So I just waited outside the office till, like, hey. And I remember that person, I was so unwavering. Like, I can pull this off. Like, it felt like I think I loved the jigsaw puzzle of it. Like, the pieces of the puzzle, it was so complex, even getting to the start line. And so therefore it didn't feel like a physical challenge to begin with. It was like, how do I make these, like things that feel appealing, that feel complex? I didn't even know how complex the physical was. Like that was something I'd never even hadn't viscerally ever kind of undergone. But I liked the idea of like making something possible that not just I hadn't done before, but I think very few people had actually done that before.
So why an ultramarathon?
Well, I had read a book about two Australian brothers who had taken on the Sahara race. And even though I wasn't an ultra runner then, I was a recreational runner, but I remember reading their book and something about their journals that they were writing each day of the race. They just seemed like normal people who were putting themselves in a situation where they had no idea how it was going to go. And, it's funny, like there's no technology, but they give you these little, it was these little keypads that you could kind of type, and then they would kind of put it into like the internet and publish it. So each day people back home could read your experiences.
And so you're still alive.
Yeah, because that's the only way. And I just remember the process of being, even for myself, I was so tired after each day of the race, but it felt like a ritual that I wanted to take because I remember what it was like reading from, the brothers. And the only way I found out about that is because the editor of that book was the mum of one of my friends who was a law student.
Right.
And so I saw the book and she was talking to me about it. And isn't it funny that something can be not in your domain, not in your personal interest or your hobby, that you hear an experience from someone, them decoding it and them kind of sharing their experience, and you're like, could that be for me?
Yeah, it ignited a spark in you.
Yeah, and I can't even explain what it was, but I think I liked the jigsaw. I liked the unknown nature of it, and I think I had something to prove of why I was choosing. I always felt different. I always felt challenged by other people to explain why I did the things that I did and why I thought the way that I did. And I think there was a defensiveness in me that I was like, I'm going to make this work. Like, I'm going to make this unconventional path.
Silence the critics. And
I'm going to make
yourself.
It credible.
Yeah.
And so I do think that was I've only been kind of like tapping onto that more recently by kind of going like, why did I do what I did? And like, did it always serve me, or where did it maybe hold me back? Because just because it's unconventional for other people, after a certain point, being unconventional is your conventional.
Yeah.
And it's like, so that's also testing my own kind of like defaults within that.
But as we like to also bring up in that moment, is at what cost?
Yeah.
Because as you just said, it's either serving you or sabotaging you. And a lot of us with this unconventional wisdom believe that we have to persevere to prove ourselves right, to silence the critics, to overcome the challenge, to make it credible. But at what cost?
Well, yes.
What
and
was
I think
the cost for you?
Well, it can work till it doesn't as well. So it can be all fine until that point where you find that resistance where, well, for me, it was the suffering element.
Right.
So suffering, when I suffered, it typically equated to, getting to the finishing line.
Achievement.
Growth. The more these races are really a lesson in, the art of suffering. How poetic we can make it sound.
Well, no, it's really important to expand on this, because I know plenty of people who are suffering to achieve, but at what cost? and they don't believe, and you've spent a whole career in it, is that, suffering is growth. Suffering gets you.
Suffering is necessary.
Is necessary to a point. And what you've tapped on is is the reflection of that is, did I have to go through that?
And can the achievement be
without it? I think that's the thing.
Yes.
It's like, that's okay if you are someone that likes to operate in spaces that haven't always been paved for you or for people like you. Look, go and do what you want to do. My big thing is, don't wait to be invited to enter into a space. Like, how frustratingly, handing over power to everybody else and not doing what feels innately right for you. It's like, you have to be in the driver's seat of the life that you are living. I think we hand over agency to other people all the time, even when they don't want to take that agency.
Well, they may be not even aware of it either. There was always an expression session for men, but never for women, and I just went in it.
Yeah. And the same
I wasn't invited. I just put my hand in it.
Yeah, as adventure and adventure has not typically been, particularly extreme adventure, has not been, held by many women.
Yeah.
And so even going into it, it was a battle, getting sponsors to back me. And so then I learnt, well, unless you back yourself, why should anyone else back you? And so it became, to be honest, a really healthy positioning. So my disadvantage and not that kind of more automatic place of credibility meant it did become more innately based on what I wanted.
Right.
Because it wasn't like I was waiting for someone to hand this moment to me. It's like, well, if you want to do, and I do believe that with, why should someone pay for the adventure of your life? Unless you're offering value. So a lot of that's my advice often when people go, how did you get sponsored? And I was like, I sponsored myself through and then every single time I decided, irrespective of anyone backing me, I'm going to do this. It just always, I backed myself and then it kind of flowed and it's so it's like you don't need to have the confidence, to get started. In fact, I think it's the getting started, it's the action that actually builds that confidence.
Yeah, confidence is actually earned because it's built.
It accrues through the doing.
Yeah. The momentum of it.
Yeah.
And this is what I don't like about Disney, is that when you get married, the prince saves you. And it's sort of, then I will be happy and then my life is happier ever after. And I had this realization deep in a meditation. It's like, unless I take control of my healing, my journey, and I don't outsource it to everyone and everything else, until I take that reins and believe in something different. And I remember where I was walking up a path and I was walking forward and I was like, I have to be that person. I have to make this for me.
But I'm the flip side because I don't believe in convention. That's not my natural default. So I'm I definitely got sucked into the girl boss era of I don't need a man. Probably way too independent. It needs to be, I need to fight hard for it or, so therefore
suffering again.
Suffering. So that was probably the biggest cost for me. Just not, some things should have ease to it. Yes, there should always be effort because in the absence of effort, things won't grow. But I think there needs to be an easefulness to the effort and a mutual effort.
Where have you found ease now?
Parenting, interestingly. I say ease in the sense of my desire. I've got this untapped desire to be all in. So that's kind of my little test I always say, what am I naturally leaning towards being all in? My instincts are typically pretty good. My capacity is what's changing. And maybe that's on the cusp of perimenopause.
Explain that. Explain capacity because it's a word that keeps on coming up in our worlds and yours. It seems like you've got a really good grasp on it. And
it's funny because when I was a lawyer, they always said, capacity was the word. It's do you have capacity for this?
Yeah.
It was literally the framing. That was the language as a junior lawyer when I only did a couple of years as a junior lawyer before I'm I can't sit down.
I don't have capacity.
There is no capacity. Yeah. And then I was I actually really professionalized, endurance running so I could leave the law. So I kind of turned it into a profession for me because, my mindset is that I like being professional. I like working with structure. I like accountability. I like teams. I like purpose. I like goals. but I just like to do it in a different kind of way.
That's the wonderful part of humans. We put people in these boxes of who they should be, but we need the difference. So capacity to you, what does that mean now that's different to junior lawyer Sam?
Yeah, so the capacity for me versus my legal days is honouring like the person of me in this very, very moment, not what I wish my capacity was, what my capacity was even yesterday or a year ago, without judgment, going like, what can I show up best to with what I have?
How do you connect with that?
Pause.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is a work in progress. Like, so this is the part where I go like, this is not like a tool or a practice that I have honed. This is what has become critical for survival.
We have a quick favour to ask. If this podcast has been landing for you, please hit subscribe and leave us a rating or review. It helps us grow the show and keep bringing these conversations to more people.
I think there's some skills and frameworks that we just like bring into our everyday because we like read about it and we're like, yeah, that makes sense. I should do that. And there's some I think we're confronted with when we, like hit rock bottom or we have a reckoning. It doesn't have to be like this total like breakdown as like some people, might talk about it. It's like this internal going, if I don't make a change right now, like I'm not going to be able to evolve into the version that syncs with who I want to be. And interestingly, I know you both talk about this a lot, but like it's so fascinating being a woman that like our baseline is meant to constantly change.
Yeah.
So it's like we are never the person that we were yesterday or last month. And then obviously in the different stages of womanhood, it's changing as well. So, no wonder we're constantly flying off the seat of our pants.
Yeah, we're constantly winging it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is beautiful, but it's also, and isn't it great to just like know it and own it and say it?
Yeah.
And so that I now radically own the version of me that is not going to be, I'm probably never going to be polished. And thank goodness, because like that is also not me. I did a presentation for AIA at the end of, I'm terrible with numbers. So it was at the end of an expedition. It was at the end of traversing Nepal's Great Himalaya Trail. So it was a run, hike, fast pack, whatever you want to call it, from the Tibetan border to the Indian border.
How long is that?
It was roughly 100 miles. Sorry, 1,000 miles. I love it. Numbers are not my thing. So 1,000 miles, but it really...
Lucky you're a lawyer, not an accountant.
Yeah. Terrible. I've got to do my accounting. But the thing is, there was no like set trail. So if you've been to Nepal, like you just know that the landscape's constantly changing. So sometimes we would get to a certain point, and I was doing it with a friend of mine, Jessie, and we were navigating ourselves. Oh, not my skill set. Delegate to like someone who's better at it. And all of a sudden
It's so funny you say that. I have to call you out on that, Sam, because the more you repeat that, the more you're going to believe it, let it go and give that control to someone else, and then you don't have to take responsibility of it. And this whole discussion, you've just said to us how you're the puzzle piecer, that you can figure it out.
No, but like I'm also happy to delegate certain things. Like I'm also happy not to just own everything.
Yeah.
I was really, if I thought I could do it all, then maybe I would probably go and do sometimes these expeditions by myself, because it's sometimes the dynamic can be like hard to manage, but like I want human interaction and like dynamic, and I also want to go
teamwork.
This is an element you can own, and I'm going to support, but it's like you own these parts, and like maybe I'll own these parts, and we actually didn't have them like super defined, but we just had this like passing of the baton. So it was like
a symbiosis of trails.
Oh yeah, and maybe because I've been so comfortable to go like, it's like at home I'm like, I don't do the bins. I don't do the bins. And it's like, you can call that an invisible rule. Of course I can do the bins. But like by saying it, it's like, okay, cool. Well, like, my partner takes that part. And there's like, so I think there's also times in life when it's like, you don't need to do everything. You don't have to be the jack of all trades. I just want to kind of not even be the master. I just want to be okay at this particular area, and you can do that. And I trust you, and I'm not going to micromanage you.
Yeah.
Because I think there is this thing, and, I work a lot like you, Layne, in like corporate spaces where sometimes we get like stifled with consensus. Like, why does everyone have to have an opinion on something that's not even their domain or frontier, that they haven't done the research or investigation? Sometimes it's like, I trust you enough that you have done the work and that you've kind of like, you've outlined a particular path forward, But also, if it doesn't work, I'm not going to like burn you,
Yeah.
at the stake. We're just going to acknowledge it, reiterate, and go for the next direction. We're going to create the next best plan.
Yeah.
As Tess and I do in our workshops, it's like, ta-da!
Yeah, we'll just leave it to you
I
guys.
took a risk. I made a mistake. We're still alive. Let's keep going.
Yeah.
Ta-da! Let it go.
Yeah.
It's such a thing. It's like, I think, we're in this really interesting dynamic of time where like things are changing a lot. You have to hold things lightly. I think for A-type personalities that maybe you like to hold on to maybe too many things, it can be overwhelming, confronting. And for me, I want to hold on to less stress. Like when you have stressful situations confronted on you, not of your choosing. So it's not like an ultra that I've chosen, but it may be a parent being unwell, navigating like difficulties with like, raising your child. And it's constantly the unknown thing. And you're always wanting to do a good job. And like, how can you do a good job at something that you've never done before? And so there's all these things that are already difficult. So I am learning to try and create ease in other areas where maybe my default was to like make it hard.
Yeah.
Like push the boulder up the hill.
I can't do it if it's not hard. So what happened after that presentation?
Oh, yeah. My point was I was in such brain fog. So I had just done the 50-day expedition, got hit by a natural disaster that actually I was stranded for 12 days out of the 50 in some of the most remote parts, remote communities, kind of near the Tibetan part of Nepal, and where I always thought that like relentless forward motion was the name of the game. I was like stranded, and I was like literally, I was so conflicted of like, am I failing? Like I'm not moving forward. Like we're going to have to jump parts of this course. I'm not going to finish this route because it was already an ambitious time frame. And I said 50 days is my max because I don't want to be away from Harry for any longer. And I was like feeling like I didn't get it right. I didn't do the job, which I've always done the job before. I've always gotten it done. But sometimes like your will is not, like it wasn't about my will. It wasn't about my desire. It was just the circumstance that was in front of me. And it was my job to make the decision of how I wanted the next step to be. And I had to do a talk for AIA afterwards. And I was like, I don't know what any of these I don't know what any of this is. Like, I just did it. And everyone always wants to ask, like, what's next? And I'm like,
does there have to be something?
I was like, wasn't that enough? So I used to kind of say like, I lie down. But actually I got up on stage and I just was like, I'm not going to package this.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get up on stage and tell you that I know what that meant and put a bow on it. And interestingly, it was at the end of the year. They were all burnt out. And I was like, hey, like this is what I think I experienced. But really what I'm going into is like I need to give myself some solid pause to actually like to recover and to kind of like start to like let this sink in. Otherwise, it's like jumping onto the next thing because I feel the compulsion to prove it to other people that like what's the next thing? It's bigger, harder, faster, higher, you know? And like does that even, if it's not intrinsically motivated, if it's not intentional, if it's not focused, it doesn't count the same way for me, and you get burnt out halfway through. And then you're out there in the middle of nowhere, and you're like, why am I not back with my son?
Yeah, exactly.
Because when you're away from your kid, particularly, it needs to be for a reason. Otherwise, like, what are you doing?
It turns into what are you running from versus what are you running to?
Yes, and I'm very happy you didn't do the Forrest Gump analogy that so many people, it's like, are you like Forrest Gump? I'm like, no, I'm like Samantha Gash.
So it's great that you've found a sense, well, you've given yourself permission to pause and you've found a sense of ease in aspects of your life that you perhaps didn't think you would, especially when it comes to parenting. So in a world that's teaching kids reliance more than resilience, how do we teach kids to be more resilient and embrace discomfort, which is right where the growth occurs?
To go on new start lines.
New start lines.
To be on new start lines. And I'm not just talking about like the race start lines. It's just like to try different things without expectation that you perform in a certain way. Harry, early kind of in his life, like I couldn't hear particularly well. And then we were caught in COVID and couldn't get into specialists. Finally got into a specialist and they said to us, it's like he's 6 foot underwater. He can't hear.
Oh.
And it's most likely it's obviously affected his hearing, but it's affected his speech and, his language. And like as a parent, you're like, oh, I've let him down. Like I've affected his academic progression and understanding. And I remember I went in tenso mode, like I'm very action biased. So like I'm action. And so like I remember it was like 4 a.m. in the morning. I'm like phonics, like, doing phonics with him in the morning, trying to like kind of curb the gap of time that we've lost. And then I was like, no, like all you want is Harry to be a confident child, to try things. And even if he is, behind in some areas of life, that doesn't affect his confidence, that he doesn't want to try something new. Because I know for me, like the feeling, that sense of failure really stopped me from trying stuff. It stopped me from seeking new opportunities. It definitely made me a more no person until I kind of like challenged that in my 20s. And so, yeah, as a parent, I just want to put Harry on different experiences, expose him to different people, different places.
And helping him manage his own expectations starts with you managing your own.
Absolutely. And also, I always just say to him, like, it's only about, all I care about is your effort.
Mm-hmm.
Because
was that all he cared about, though?
Well, we talk about it all the time. Like,
Okay.
he knows this. Like, it's kind of, you create your own language with your kids.
You do.
Yeah.
And it's just, sometimes he's getting a mini, like, keynote presentation. But he actually teaches me, like, all the time. Like, we talk about these things and it's, of course, I come from a high-performance background of, like, what I demand and expect of myself. And I think we all should be seeking to perform to what is our high, but it has to be sustainable.
Yes.
And it has to be healthy.
Is that what success is to you now?
It's just about constant stock takes, constant, like, moments of pause to make sure that what I'm doing is deliberate and intentional, and it is for my own, like, it syncs with my purpose. So, like, it's to be congruent, like that the person of me in the four walls of my home marries up with the person that is on the outside. So if that means that I sometimes get up on stage and honestly say to people that I don't completely understand what this experience was, and maybe the version of me felt like that would be an incredible presenter to not have a clear, crystallized idea, to get up and say that and be able to explain it, that I do that.
Yeah, an authenticity to it.
Yeah.
But you're human as well. Do you ever get that wrong?
Always.
Yeah.
And now I say it. Like,
And how do you respond to that?
I have to accept that people do see you sometimes as less credible by showing the human side. Like, that is okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's kind of their own stuff.
Yeah.
I would rather show up as the accurate version of me, and for it to maybe chink at the perception that people may have of what I am because I've run across deserts, but to feel comfortable with the person that I am and presenting it. And I think that's been a big lesson as well. It's like there is no one shape of resilience. There's no one shape of what it means to be a capable, confident person. And the more we see the breadth of expression of that, the more comfortable we are of recognizing in other people and not judging them for one moment.
There's like stories are told best when they're more authentic and people believe you. Like I don't subscribe to the people see you more if you're more polished, because it's like, well, what's wrong with you really? Like, do you go to bed that way?
But we need to see more of it. That's the thing. It's like that has been the version of past, just like, there typically were more, male leaders at certain types of organizations. And even if you were a female who was lucky to be a leader, you often still emulated the style of leadership. And so it's like it takes people to both genders, to question that and showcase themselves and be comfortable taking a little bit of the knocks for it to, over time, accrue.
Yeah.
And so that's why you've always got to, people who go out and do something for the first time, whether you agree with their position or not, I think that person deserves, like, some respect and care, because it's like, it's very lonely to be that person, and it's not typically you who gains, the accolades.
It's like the start line medal. Yeah,
it's like the second wave. It's the second wave people who kind of go, oh, that work. Oh, that I can do that now, and then they come through. So it's like being a pioneer is nowhere, or a trailblazer is nowhere near as like exciting or lucrative as people like to think it is.
It's not. Did we see that version of you on Survivor?
No, so I was a TV show. So you
were a performer. You
Well,
you weren't the authentic, congruent.
No. It's
values-driven.
It's an edited version. So it's like when I was doing the show.
Yes.
They film you 24/7. So it's like you can't hide. And to be honest, I'm not very good at masking. Not at all. That's
You'd be shit at poker.
I've got a terrible poker face.
Yeah.
Which is why I would often hide when someone was asking a direct question. But the edited version, is quite different. It's spliced and it's moved around, and you've done enough TV, but particularly they've got to create a formula for a show.
And a character.
A character, and there's 24 characters.
Did you like your character that they created?
Well, I mean, at times when I felt like it was me, and then maybe at times when I'm like, oh, that seems really palatable for mainstream society.
Yeah.
And that wasn't always probably the accurate version of what I was internally experiencing. So it's like, there's different times that I liked it, but it also wasn't, like, Survivor's not real life.
Yeah.
Is that a metaphor for life, though?
I think in terms of how you're displayed in the world, like there's probably a million versions of me, 10 billion of you, 5 million of you out there, because we all see each other through different lenses.
Isn't it great that we just start to accept that there are many different sides of people, and we sometimes are so quick to find a very rigid understanding of someone because we feel like that's easier for us.
Yeah.
I can put you in that category and then when someone challenges that because, they're multifaceted.
Yeah, believe it or not.
And then all of a sudden you don't feel comfortable with that. And it's like, well, why? Like, there is, like, that there's many shapes of you. And I think because of remote working now, we actually are seeing the more facets of people because the delineation between personal life and professional life is like it's being rubbed out.
Yeah.
And I think that's great, but I do think we're in a transition phase of like how we understand and accept, but essentially it's creating humanization of people. And I think that is going to be only a good thing moving forward.
That's what people say to us. We are rehumanizing the workforce. I'm like, wow. Sam, to close, can you rehumanize us today? As you know, we have the final bit, which is the AIA Do It for Life toolkit. Now, I was going to take this into one direction, but what I really want to focus on is your mental toolkit. Now, not the one that you use in ultra marathons, but the one that you apply to everyday life in those moments that are hard and tough to find ease.
Yeah. In the sticky moments, when you're on the precipice of like, are you going to keep going or maybe do you need to pull back? I first try to say to myself, pulling back is okay. And in fact, it's actually not going backwards. So maybe pulling back is the wrong term, but it's like either direction is fine. It's like being intentional.
The pause.
So the power of the pause is something that and it's not like I don't need a 2-week break to kind of like pause. I don't need to be on a silent meditation, which, would be lovely to do that. But it is just finding those like little micro moments in the day where I am not influenced by technology, consumption of others, whatever it is. And I get to just sink in and go, am I operating from a outdated version of me? Am I operating from these kind of more ingrained default settings that are no longer serving me? And do I kind of need to reboot into the version that the 41-year-old version of me that has accrued all of this experience and has this focus now? So for me, it's just challenging and just questioning a little bit more. And so I think invisible rules, I think it's important to know they're invisible for a reason. So you have to kind of uncover them to begin with. But then also it's not being harsh on yourself for them because they actually kept you safe at some point. They got created because at some point you believed that you needed them in order to move through the world. And therefore, but at times, maybe that was a 7-year-old version of Sam.
Yeah.
Maybe the 7-year-old version of Sam was scared to climb, the rock face. But that's not the case anymore.
Yeah. Now it's survival. So the power of the pause and understand your invisible labels.
Understand the invisible labels. And the very last one is just really seeking to close the gap as much as possible as like the version at home and the version in the outside world, which also means like you are giving the best version of you to the people in your inner world, which I think often it happens the other way around. Like I'm performing and I'm giving great energy outside to other people, but at home I'm a shell.
Yeah.
So it's like match it up.
Sam, complete this sentence. Your wake-up call is not a wake-up call until?
You invest in yourself.
Beautiful.
It's been an awesome conversation, Sam. I always love sitting on a couch and listening to you. As we know, our lives aren't measured by the kilometres we run. It's measured by the person that we become along the way. We are always evolving and we're always growing. So whatever mountain you're climbing, resilience isn't built at the top or the finish line. It's built in the decision to take one more step. So we encourage all of our listeners to choose one step from Sam's Life MBA, from Sam's Life Toolkit.
Get on the start line.
Get it on the start line. Put it into practice this week. Challenge yourself. Challenge your regular ways of thinking, your regular ways of showing up, your performances, the masks that you're wearing, and be more curious about that. And just thank you for sharing your insights and knowledge and wisdom with us today. We've loved this conversation.
Yeah, I have to put my sentiments in there, Sam. You've just lit me up to do things differently and to take more risks in my life. I won't be doing an ultra marathon.
That's what she thinks.
My version of that is just being a really good mum and being the best I can in that. And this conversation has expanded me in so many ways. So thank you. Where can the world find you?
Oh,
on top of a mountain?
On top of the mountain. You can find me where there's nobody.
In Antarctica.
Yeah, you can come to Antarctica. No, I mean in person anywhere in the Dandenong Ranges at the coffee shop. But yeah.
SamGash.com?
Samantha Gash.
SamanthaGash.com.
Yes. Yeah. All right. Well, from us to you, Dream Team, this has been a wonderful, expansive conversation. If it has lit something in you, or please share it. It means so much to us that this message gets out to everyone. And we will see you next week on A Wake Up Call. Doodles!